Picture this: San Francisco 1870s. Saloons, steamships and enough mustache wax to seal a hull breach. In the middle of it all, a man in a faded blue uniform with epaulets from the costume department of Vibes walks. He's carrying a tricolored umbrella and a cane carved like a snake, because that's the ultimate drip. He is Norton I, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. Yes, those United States. No, the United States was mostly unaware. A bit of Napoleonian vibes here. His capital, San Francisco, basically shrugged and said, "Long live the Emperor." Restaurants fed him on the house. Streetcars waved him aboard. Theaters let him in free. Newspapers printed his proclamations as content is king. And he was literally that. He even issued his own currency, which was accepted. Not surprising, given that he was an emperor. But, surprising as it may be, Norton wasn't born to the throne. He backed into it by treacherous rise. First, let's get back to the very beginning. Our boy starts life as Joshua Abraham Norton, a London-born Jewish toddler in 1818. 2 years later, his family sails to South Africa because his dad, John Norton, signed up with the revolution. The agricultural one. Like most revolutions, this one failed him, so the family pivots into trade. John becomes active in Cape Town's Tikvah Israel congregation. Joshua grows up around ships, ledgers, and the eternal optimism of Dutch invoices. Synagogue trade and Dutch surroundings in Cape Town gave him financial know-how. San Francisco would show him that this is the equivalent of higher education, which is mostly worthless nowadays. By 1849, gold fever slides into his DMs. California calls the way Las Vegas calls a bachelor party, with promise and poor judgment. Joshua boards the Francesca and lands in San Francisco. This city was mostly mad at the time, but it had great marketing, called Gold Rush. He does a big brain move, and he's not panning rivers, he's supplying the panners. He touched the economy where it tickled and it laughed coins. Until the economy got its period. Nemesis is approaching in the form of rice. A famine hits China and San Francisco prices spike. Norton places a mega bet on rice shipment he hopes will keep spiking. The market proceeds to unspike. Other ships arrive loaded with rice, like Costco had a liquidation event. It was very bad time to keep money in rice. Norton sues, loses, then appeals, and despite the odds, loses again. He can only see as his fortune is yeeted into civil procedure. He met the invisible hand, and it picked his pocket. Depending on the account, he disappears from the social pages, and reappears with a new pronoun. We. He was truly ahead of his time. Under the tatters, though, is a real wound, a merchant-class dream crushed by risk, lawsuit and pride. Yet the pivot isn't bitterness, it's theater. He writes a comedy and casts the whole town. September 17th, 1859. A local newspaper folds open and tucked between snake oil ads and bloodletting specialists a bombshell. At the peremptory request and desire of large majority of the citizens, one Joshua A. Norton proclaims himself Norton I, Emperor of the United States. Using his new powers, a few weeks later, he dissolved Congress by decree for being fraught with bribery, corruption and maleficence. Wait, this is an option? He kept on giving. Around 1863, France invaded Mexico and installed Emperor Maximilian. The headlines were absurd enough that Norton decided to out-absurd them by expanding his empire southward. He proclaimed himself Protector of Mexico. Historians love to debate the diagnosis. Was this delusion, satire, a coping strategy, or the longest yes and in American history? On the ground, no one bothered. San Franciscans welcomed him the way the internet welcomed a wholesome meme. They shared him. The unspoken deal was basically, you'd be nice, we'll believe you're important. Which is also how cats work. The city granted the emperor every courtesy a democracy can extend. He reciprocated with more decrees, build a bridge between San Francisco and Oakland, clean up local governance, be less awful to immigrants, stop sectarian bickering, wild stuff. His church attendance was aggressively ecumenical. He would show up in synagogues, Catholic masses and Protestant services, greeting people with the same formal nod. Probably because he liked seeing God confused. On Christmas, Sunday school gave him a necktie. Another time, he returned a gesture and handed a rosebud to a little girl. A Methodist bishop later wrote that under a shabby braid beat the heart of a gentleman. Hard to disagree on both ends. There's a reason writers kept name-dropping him. Stevenson said no other city would have indulged a voluntary monarch so kindly, cashing his pretended checks and letting him ransack the bill of fare. Which sounds illegal, yet tasty. Twain called him a lovable old humbug. Surprisingly warm for someone who named his cat Pestilence. If you sense a through line here, you're right. The city wasn't mocking Norton. His act held a mirror, and everyone liked the reflection for once. If you're wondering when the fairy tale breaks, when the beat hit the bureaucracy, bookmark that. We'll get there. The arrest, the public apology, the honorary upgrade, then the end nobody quite planned for. 2 funerals and the interfaith fumble. For now, let's keep walking behind the emperor. Here's the deal San Francisco made with its favorite monarch. He would be kind, clean and funny. The city would make the beat real. He printed imperial script, and people actually took it. It wasn't legal tender, it was make-believe backed by vibes. Much like today's legal tender. And it worked because he never abused it. In fact, he paid in attention and charm more than anything. The emperor gave back by being everywhere. He did inspections of streetcars and sidewalks like municipal ghost. He attended lectures and school ceremonies. He was the city's living folklore. When his uniform wore out, the town made sure it didn't. The clothes were costumes, but also part of something intangible. Keep the magic, the city said. Norton kept it immaculate. Let's talk decrees. First, the spicy one that put him on the radar. In 1859, he abolished Congress. As mentioned, he said it was fraught with bribery and maleficence. People laughed, then kept reading because that was a fair point. That proclamation ran in the papers like fortune gone rogue again. If the real government was a mess, maybe a pretended one could shame it into tidiness. But his best policy was about bridge. 3 times in 1872 he ordered a grand crossing to Oakland. A suspension bridge, tunnel, whatever. Just connect the bay. He was off by 60 years, but not wrong. When the steel finally left the water in the 1930s, Norton would do a flip, but he was dead. He weighed in on civil rights with the same frank tone. In 1871, he demanded that black San Franciscans ride sidecars without harassment. In 1874, he said black children should attend public schools. He confronted racist demagogues and Sandlot rallies, even if the crowd didn't always listen. He also scolded sectarian squabbles and took a broad view of immigrants. He invented one simple trick. The European monarchy hates him. Going back to a more wholesome note. Ban of Frisco. A $25 fine, he thundered, for those whippersnappers who clipped the city name like a bad haircut. While not enforceable, it did reflect his love for San Francisco. When it comes to identity, length matters. His proclamations were chaotic, but not useless. They ranged from traffic control to national divorce. Sometimes he shot confetti, sometimes he called out actual rot. This man managed politics like a pro, before PowerPoint was invented. Heroic deed. Every fairy tale meets a clipboard. In January 1867, a special patrol officer arrested Norton for vagrancy. Arresting an emperor for vagrancy is like finding the moon for indecent exposure, fool's errand. The city politely said to them to fuck off. Papers defended the emperor as if he were Santa ticketed for a bad parking. The Daily Alta snapped that he robbed no one and despoiled no country. Uncommon resume in politics. The chief of police, Patrick Crowley, let him go and apologized. Norton, in his benevolence, issued an imperial pardon to the officers, so both men kept their jobs. In response, the state performed an official choreography to the beat. Officers saluted when he passed. Crowds parted like a Red Sea for a very polite Moses. The whole situation hadn't humiliated him, it had canonized him. This was government by vibes. That apology wasn't just mercy, it was a gesture of graceful back and forth. The city understood what it had. When he touched the brim of his hat to a crowded sidewalk, people smiled and went on with their day, spirits uplifted. And that was his KPI. When the monarch dies, the question is very simple: who gets the crown and who gets the bill? In January 1880, San Francisco answered the second part. A businessman named Joseph Eastland, who had known Joshua back when he was just Joshua, rallied friends at the Pacific Club to fund a funeral with some pizzazz. He booked the parlor on Lockhart and Porter on O'Farrell, arranged the finery, and turned a pauper's end into something like civic curtain call, with flowers and all. But claimants for his soul? That got tangled like a PR of an oil company after a spill. He was Jewish by birth and sat in the balcony of Temple's Emmanuel on Saturdays, but hunted churches the rest of the week. You think the synagogue would step in? It didn't. The funeral rites were Christian, led by Episcopal minister, while the Jewish press of the time argued with itself about whether the community had failed a brother or simply respected an emperor who insisted he was beyond the labels. There is also a myth of 2-mile-long funeral procession. That is a bit of exaggeration, like 4 inches is big. Papers counted thousands who came to look, but the cortege itself was modest. The love was big, but line of carriages was not. The emperor's story doesn't need inflation. It stands up on clarity alone. Yet this is not the end of the story. 54 years later, San Francisco moved its debt to improve feng shui. Cemeteries inside the city limits were emptied, so Norton's remains were reburied at Woodlawn's in Colma. City stuck to the script till the end. During the ceremony, music was played by the municipal band, the Olympics Club sang, and the army battalion was fending off the air with rifles. The mayor sent a wreath that adorned a granite headstone with the proper inscription: Norton I, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, Joshua A. Norton, 1819-1880. No quotation marks around Emperor. No Star of David either, despite his Jewish roots. Was that an omission? A final flourish of the Emperor's own fantasy about Bourbon blood, or the final vengeance of disbanded Congress? We'll never know. It's easy to frame Norton as a lovable oddball, a walking meme in brass button coat. But if you zoom out, he's still a walking meme, but smaller. He was also a rolling joke, of superb quality, as the best jokes are those deeply grounded in reality. He was this voice in the back of your head, spoken aloud, but for people in San Francisco. Every Saturday he sat in the balcony of Temple Emmanuel, then strolled into Christian churches midweek just to soak up hymns. He liked the collective rhythm of belief, not the bickering. When sermons drifted into politics, he suggested merging all denominations into a state church, mostly so he could get everyone to the lunch faster. Theology by efficiency. He was a proto-influencer, doing social commentary and using his fame to go around the city giving high fives and getting meals on the house, because people knew him and liked him. Was he ill? Judging by the newspapers of the time, probably yes. Judging by today's standards, no, as most TikTokers do a dumber shit. When Norton dropped dead in the street, the performers kept on going. In 2004, the board of supervisors voted to name part of the Bay Bridge after him. Motion failed, but it also proved the emperor can pull some strings from beyond the grave. Then in 2023, the city quietly nailed his name to the block where he lived. Emperor Norton Place. He had no army, yet he commanded attention. No seat, yet he kept order. No bridge yet, but he sketched one that works. That's the blueprint. A fantasy sturdy enough to build on. And if you ever wonder how to honor him, don't overthink it. Do a tiny public good, then act like it's your imperial duty. Long live the beat. If you find this video worth your time, subscribe to discover other unknown stories. Give it a thumbs up. Think of it as patting me on the head. Let me know if there is another story you'd like me to create a video about in the future. Check out t-shirts inspired by my videos to support the channel. For more content, watch the previous video about the epidemic of exploding trousers, which is as weird as it sounds. Sincerely, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Cultural agricultural one. Agricultural.
Agricultural.
Oh.